All right. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Sarah Forgany here with Dr. Kimberly Van Buren. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and according to the CDC, the most diagnosed mental disorders in children are ADHD, anxiety, depression, and behavioral problems. And so we wanted to sort of spotlight this huge problem because, especially with the pandemic, a lot of children have been greatly impacted. You may know it about your kids, you may not know it because a lot of times they go on and not tell you anything. So there are definitely certain things to watch out for, and that's where Dr. Van Buren comes in. Dr. Van Buren, you've been doing this for a very long time, 15 years as a family and marriage therapist.
Yes, yes.
This is with the Balancing Act Life Management Services.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about some of the cases that you have seen and how big of a problem is it really right now?
Right now, it's the CDC put out a report. The statistics are from April of 2019 to April of 2020, the increase in emergency room visits for mental health for children has gone up 24%. So
Wow.
that's significant over 1 year. And so, of course, that's right in the middle of the pandemic and everything. And now the kids are going back to school, but that's just another adjustment, right? So
Right.
every time we transition, that's more difficult on the children and the parents. So it's a huge problem right now.
What kind of shift did we see during the pandemic, especially as the kids had to stay at home and not really interact as much as they used to?
Well, with exactly, it's the non-interaction, and the kids need that social factor. And so it seems as though when they got that taken away, they kind of just drew into themselves, and their outlet was the phones and the video games and everything
Right.
like that. And so then you get used to that, and then you're just like, okay, now we're transitioning back out again.
Right.
And so that's difficult for adults and children.
So, how do you have that discussion with your child if you feel like something is not exactly right?
Well, you want to ask them point blank. We don't want to beat around the bush, you want to be as direct as possible and make it as normal as possible. So just like you would ask, like, hey, is your arm hurting? Because I see that you're holding it kind of funny, right? Same way you'd be like, hey, are you feeling sad? Because I see that you're not acting the same as you were before. What's going on? So often we want to ignore the emotional part of our children and not really bother them or get in their business. And we need to. We need to really start asking them the tough questions.
Yeah. I do want to look at our Facebook page real quickly to see if anyone is, we're taking questions here
Okay.
from folks. If you are watching and you are dealing with a similar issue and you're suspecting that your child may be going through something and you would like to ask a question, Dr. Van Buren will be happy to answer those questions for you. Let me just check to see if we have any. Okay, I do not see any questions right now, but please keep them coming. Let's talk a little bit about those warning signs.
Right.
What do I look for? I think a lot of times you have no idea even that your child might be going through something, or maybe you do notice a slight change, but you're just thinking, oh, it's nothing.
Right, right.
But sometimes it is something.
Sometimes it is, and I think we need to approach it the same way we would with our physical health. And I think that's the message we're trying to get out for Mental Health Awareness Month is that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And so the same way you wouldn't allow your child's a lump in their throat, or
Right.
something go on without getting it checked out, you still wouldn't let that happen for their emotional health either. So if you see your child acting differently, whether they were really outgoing and now they're really withdrawn, or they are hanging out with a different social crowd,
Right.
right? Something significant. Have they gained a lot of weight? Have they lost weight? Have they shaved their head?
So even physical appearance
Absolutely.
can be a huge indicator.
Absolutely, because if I am going through something emotionally, usually it'll be seen outside, right? There'll be an exterior showing. So if I all of a sudden start wearing all black and black lipstick and, as a
Yeah.
teen, like that's something to, I'm not saying it has to be a mental health crisis, but it is something to inquire about.
It's a change.
It's a
really
change.
Any change. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you are having those conversations, I often think about this. You and I were just talking about this, but I said as a new mom, I don't have to deal with it quite yet because she's one. But there are key phrases, I was reading in research, there are key phrases, keywords that you use that are very important to get across to children because what we may think is okay or positive they may not exactly read it this way, and there are ways to communicate with them that makes it a little bit more clear and maybe more comforting. So, what are some of those key things to say or do?
Well, I think the key phrases are going to be very specific towards that unit, right? It's going to be things that that mom and that daughter or son or that family says to each other. So it's going to be the tone and intonation more than the phrases, right? So the kids are going to know what your tone is when you say certain things. Or you want to, I know you were telling me earlier about saying, I'm so proud of you, letting them know, like, hey, you should be proud of yourself.
Right.
So you want to empower them to know that they have a lot of what they need, themselves. I would start even talking to children as young as preschool about their emotions and how to manage them and give them the tools, help them find the tools to manage themselves so that they know that they can do it. They don't have to run to the teacher all the time or to their parents
Right.
to try to regulate themselves.
And I was going to ask you that. How young can you go when you do start these discussions?
Absolutely. Preschool. We're talking 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
They know that when they're upset, they know when they're sad, and you want to have these conversations with them like, okay, well, let's see, how would you deal with that? Because they can understand these things, and we don't want to rush to them and, oh, they're there, everything's okay, it's fine. No, let them have their feelings.
Right.
And let them know, well, when you're done with that, have your feelings and then come and talk to me. Right? And giving them the power to make the decisions.
What do you do, though, when your kid is right there and you're asking, what's wrong? Talk to me. Please open up, right? And they just absolutely refuse to. What do you do in a situation like that?
Well, I think just when we're saying that, like, talk to me, open up, we're making it a thing. We're making this a thing right now instead of making it normal. Right? So this should be a daily conversation, the same way you say, hey, how was school today, or how was soccer? Okay, how'd you feel today? Were you tired? I know you were up late last night. Did you feel kind of grumpy today? How was your mood? And just
Right.
make it part of a normal conversation.
But then if the answer is like, oh, it's fine, nothing really happened. Very short
Right.
phrases that nothing really comes out of it. Like, do you continue to ask? Is there a point where, like, enough is enough? You're now being too pushy, and you might drive them away, and it's time to call professional help. How do you go about it?
Well, I think it depends on if you feel like there's an issue. If this is a child that is exhibiting signs of a change, right, like a decline in grades or a change in behavior, like we were
Right.
talking about, and then they're not talking, then you might want to seek professional help.
Okay.
Right? Not that there's an issue, but if you feel like something is going on, if they're not doing any of the things that they used to do,
Right.
right? Like they used to love the movies and the Avengers, and now they don't like anything.
And define professional help. Who do you call?
I would start with your pediatrician to see, what they recommend. And a lot of times now I see that pediatricians are doing a depression and anxiety screening on the kids. So I would let the pediatrician know, and then you can look up a therapist. I would go to psychologytoday.com, where you can put in all the filters, your insurance, you could put in your zip code, and find a therapist that's close to you. And a therapist can be a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed professional counselor, and you'll see the acronyms LPC, LMFT, right? But
Right.
everyone on Psychology Today they are all licensed.
And a lot of times insurance does cover those costs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Insurance, more and more.
Yeah.
And now with things being in the middle of COVID, they're doing a lot of telehealth approval.
Right.
So you can, you don't have to worry about running all over town. You can get a telehealth appointment for your kids.
Okay. All right. Let me see if we do have any questions. It says professional help is needed, especially if pandemic. My son has been driving me insane, said Kemp. And then says Roddy said, thank you for your advice, doctor. Is there anything else that we have not talked about that you feel is really important to touch upon? Because, again, I really do feel, and we've heard this not just from parents, but you hear it from teachers, you hear it from friends, that a lot of children's behaviors has really changed in the last few years. I think a lot of them too have gotten so used to being at home,
Right.
in their comfort zone. They don't have to deal with the outside world anymore. They don't have to worry about behaving a certain way. And now that you're having to be back out and be yourself, I think there's a lot of confusion.
There's confusion, but there's anxiety that's surrounded by change, right? And I think that change for everyone is difficult, and even more so for kids. But I when you said that, like, what would be the main thing? I think the main thing would be to educate ourselves, because our kids are always watching. They're always watching, even when you think they're not. And so that means we're always modeling. So if you are practicing good self-care and managing your stress and your emotions and being very open about it, your child sees that.
Right.
And I think that is the most powerful thing to see, like, hey, mom was upset today, but I saw her go do, a quick mindful moment and do some deep breaths, and then she was better. She came back out and cooked us dinner.
You're the role model.
Right.
Yeah,
You are
that
the
makes
role
sense.
model.
How do I educate myself, though? I mean, do you have certain books that you read or research online, or do you talk to someone as well and before you start moving forward to your child? What do you do?
I mean, I recommend therapy for everyone. I think that it's that impartial person that's not, it's not your friend, it's not your mom, it's just someone that you can go over things with. And so I'm an advocate for therapy.
Yeah.
So I recommend that. Reading books, podcasts, all of these things are really important, but you have to find something that works for you.
Right.
Every therapist isn't for every person, so you want to find the right therapist. Don't be afraid to, like, if you make an appointment with a therapist and you're like, I don't like them, it's fine. Find a different therapist.
Right.
It has to be therapeutic. It has to work for you.
And we all need someone to talk to.
That's right. We
Yeah.
all need someone to
Child or
talk
adult,
to.
it doesn't matter.
Absolutely,
We all need it at some
absolutely.
point. Yeah.
And so the kids watching you go to therapy and normalizing it, like, yeah, I have my therapy appointment. It doesn't have to be hush hush, like, oh, I'm going to therapy.
That's a really good point, because a lot of times I feel like people don't talk about it. People
Right.
don't say, there's still a bit of a stigma if you say I'm going to a therapist, or if you do say it, it feels like there's always an explanation that comes with it. But that's a great point you're making. You're saying make it normal, like
Right.
it's okay.
It's okay.
Tell your family members, bye.
Yeah.
Therapist appointment.
Going to
I'll
therapy.
be back.
Yeah, absolutely,
And I come back a
absolutely.
whole lot happier.
Yeah.
Let me go let it out.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. You have to do that the same way we would say we're going to get our teeth cleaned.
Right.
You just have to normalize it and make it a part of your everyday conversation, like you would with your physical health.
Excellent. Great information, Dr. Van
Thank
Buren.
you.
Thank you very much for joining
Thanks
us this
for having
morning.
me.
Really appreciate it.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
yeah, enjoyed talking to you as well.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And folks, thank you again for joining us. If you missed part of this, a good thing about Facebook Live, you can always go back, rewind, watch the whole interview. And if you have any questions, write them in there, because we also have access to those. We can always go back and
Absolutely.
maybe answer your questions in there as well. Have a great day. Take care of yourself. Take care of your kids. And we'll see you on Ken's 5, Monday through Friday, 4:30 to 7 a.m. Have a great